Hey, welcome Hairbrained Nation. Julian Perlingiero here. Going to be cutting hair for you guys today. I have Randy Taylor behind the camera. He's going to be feeding the questions. So we're going to have a great time today. Make sure you hit your share button. And a little note, most of you know the Hairbrained Instagram has been hacked. Stay tuned on Facebook and on the app. When you're as cool as Hairbrained, these things happen. All right, so we are Pivot Point professionals who practice. All right, so I'm going to start out. I'm going to do a long layer for you today, which may not sound as exciting as a lot of things, but we're going to do a really cool one. So it will be exciting. Now, the layering I'm going to do is going to be something that starts through the front and works towards the back. Now, in doing that, I'm going to start out by sectioning off the top of the head and getting a nice division following the curvature of the head shape. And then I'm going to start in through my outline. So keeping everything really neat, everything really clean, especially, it's important with short hair, but even more so with long hair because you can get, lost quite easily. So starting out through the front, I'm going to take my sections diagonal, and I'm going to start with a very low elevation to build a baseline through the outline shape, right? So taking the hair down and then cutting the line, looking at the angle of the fingers. So I'm working more towards the shoulder blade length, all right? And I will spin around for you guys. Comb that hair down and forward and building the outline shape. So I wanted to build a slight graduation in the outline, and that's one of the reasons why I am elevating it down. And you can see how that line just goes back, right? So with the graduation in the outline, you'll get a little bit of a softer shape than if I was just to comb it down blunt and cut it. Now, I'm using one of the Pivot Point mannequin heads today. This is Erica. And, you can see the length that I'm cutting. It's a really great length. Gives me enough to work with for this longer shape. What I also, like with these is, the density of hair allows me to build a consistency with the shape. So working with diagonal sections, combing the hair forward, elevating just ever so slightly, following my guideline, working towards the back hairline. Now, once I get behind the ear, my section is going to go all the way through. So you see working a rounded shape, which all starts with the sectioning. And again, taking that nice and clean, all the way through the back hairline. Again, starting through the front, elevating the hair just ever so slightly, wanting to keep weight in the outline. And you can see, just by working in this method, the amount of density and control I have of the hairline. Now, following this with a rounded shape all the way through to the back until I reach the end of the section where the hair is combed straight down. So starting out in the front, combing the hair forward, slightly down, graduated level, then following the curvature of the head shape of the section until I reach the bottom of the section where the hair is straight out. Now, once I have that guideline in entirety, now I can continue through.
You're getting some thank yous. Gary Pearson is saying thanks for sharing this.
Awesome.
He's going to practice this. And then Andy King is saying hello to you.
Hey, Andy.
A lot of thumbs up and thanks, Hairbrained.
Nice, guys. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're all having a moment to watch.
Got Tristan here.
I know it's a busy Thursday in the salon for a lot of you. So at this part of the haircut, you're really looking at something, and if I was, cutting it a lot shorter, you might be able to see it a little bit clearer, but it's really like a round graduation, right? Because my elevation is down, right? So it's starting out like a round graduation, but I am going to start to elevate it more at about a 90-degree angle that's going to start to layer it through. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to get above the curvature of the head shape. Now, one of the differences is, you could cut a blunt one length line and then take your sections and lift up. But what I find is you get a big corner in between the two areas. So by graduating the outline, I just get a nice smooth transition into that layering. So again, guys, we're doing a series that is Professionals Who Practice by Pivot Point. I'm using the Pivot Point Erica doll head. And this is definitely my preferred doll head, especially when I'm teaching large classes and I'm teaching technique and I have maybe 20 hairstylists all doing the same thing. So that way we're consistently, working from start to finish throughout the haircut. Now you'll see here, the elevation is much higher. I have to just make sure I have enough of a guideline so that I can see that really clearly. There it is. And now I'm just coming almost straight out off of the top of the section, of the top of the curve of the head. And then again, still keeping this rounded cutting line from the front of the section all the way through to the back. So now from this point, the elevation is here. And then the elevation through the back is down almost straight out from the bottom of the section. So I'm still on a curved line, but just the curved line started lower, and now it lifts and follows the head shape around. And what I'll do is I'll work this all the way through until I pass over the center.
The thank yous for sharing this are just pouring in.
Oh, awesome, guys.
I think people really appreciate haircuts that they can make money with.
Well, I think, that's the thing. I love to push the limit, guys. And I think that that's something that we should all do as often as possible. But at the same time, when we're looking for things that we're going to be able to use in the salon, a direct, relationship to what we do in the salon, that really, it's priceless. Because this is a haircut that, you could do on one of your clients probably tomorrow when they come in that have long hair.
All right, we have our first question from Kelly. She should win something.
All right, Kelly.
She's saying, can we see this dry?
The finish?
At the end.
At the end, of course, yeah. So what I'll do is I'll work from wet to dry. And I'll do a little bit of blow drying. And then show you. And, from there also do a little bit of finishing work for you. To show you how to kind of modify, how to texturize, and how to do all the things that are going to just put that final bit of finish on the haircut. I'm going to spin Erica around for you guys. So you can see how the shape, now with the elevation through the top, is starting to look a little bit more layered. Right? So I started out with a lower elevation, building the weight line, or weight, I should say, through the outline. And then as I got above the curve of the head, that weight gets elevated higher. So now more in a layering elevation and finger angle. Now this section here is going to be my last section. And you can see it works right with that section I took at the curvature of the head, right onto the other side. So everything nice and clean, everything organized. And I think that that's something really important, when working with all lengths of hair, but definitely with longer hair, keeping yourself very organized with your work.
We have another question from Haley this time.
Okay.
How do we cross-check this haircut?
Well, Haley, I'm going to actually show you in just a minute. All right. But generally, when we think about cross-checking, we're looking to take somewhat of an opposite section. Now, when you're working on diagonals, it can be a little bit hard to get an exact opposite. But primarily, my sections are more vertical, so my cross-check will be taken more horizontally. So now, just as I finish this section here.
Then I want to pass on another question after that, but go ahead and answer the cross-check.
So now, what I'm going to do with the cross-check, I'm going to start through the back, and just notice I tilted the head down a little bit. And I'm going to take the sections more horizontal. And then elevate the hair down. All right. And make sure, whew, I'm glad that's clean.
So in your elevation, or in your cross-check, your elevation needs to reflect the elevation exactly where you cut.
Exactly. And I see this happen quite a bit where someone will take like the top sections. And if you think my top section was elevated this high, and then they'll comb it down to cross-check it, and they'll see this, and they'll go like, oh, well, that doesn't look right.
Yeah.
You know, so that's because I'm not elevating it consistently with the first initial way I cut the hair. And then I might go back and I might cut some of that off, and I'm actually damaging, you know, the haircut. So I always need to make sure that my elevation in the cross-check stays consistent. Also, look, guys, I'm taking clean sections. I'm not just scooping the hair up and checking it through. I'm taking clean sections. I'm elevating it approximately to where I cut it. And then I'm just taking off any little points or any little inconsistencies within the cross-check. You know, so cross-checking is definitely, you know, if you think about it, you're trying to perfect the haircut. So everything has to become more precise. Now I'm above the round. So lifting up. Taking off any stray edges of the haircut. And then I'm going to continue that through all the way to the front. So great question, and your timing couldn't have been any better because it's just as I was going to start doing my cross-check.
Okay, next question.
Yes.
Kelsey is asking, so for those of us who like texturizing scissors, what tips can you give somebody when it would be appropriate to use thinning scissors or texturizing scissors versus point cutting? What the difference might be?
First of all, I would do that at a refinement stage of the haircut.
After the hair's dry.
So after the mostly dry, but I would get my basic shape in first. Now we need to think about why are we doing it, right? Why are we using a texturizing scissor, or why are we going back through to point into the haircut? So there's a couple different good reasons that you can do it. I'm not saying don't, but think about why. So if I want to alter the density of the hair, I could very easily go through with thinning scissors and cut through and remove some of the density so that it lays a little bit closer, lays a little bit softer. Be careful not to go too close to the root though, or we can actually build volume out because we're putting shorter hairs too close to the root. If I want to create just a little bit of texture and movement on the edge, well then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the section up. I'm not going to go really into it too much right now as far as actually cutting, but I'm going to lift the section up, and then I'm going to take my scissor and cut parallel down into it, which will give me, you know, the smallest amount to come out. Or if I really wanted to create a bit more choppy of a texture, I might come in at an angle that's going to remove more, which is going to rough up the edge a little bit. You know, so it's just thinking about the effect that you're trying to create. Now, the only thing, and it was great because I just had this question over the weekend, you know, from someone. And, the only time I would say you shouldn't do this is when you're doing it to try to fix mistakes. It's not an erasing method. It's removing density, or it's creating texture into the hair. Awesome question, though. So, just love the whole concept of the series because I think, we are all professionals who practice. And it's something that, we need to do consistently throughout our career. I've been an educator for, over 20 years. And, educating is practicing. Every time we do something and we take the time to think about the whys of it, right? And we take the time to try to do it as perfect as possible. We're practicing, right? Okay, so now I'm going to start to work through the opposite side. So what I want to do is I want to take my section through the temple the same. So I'm going to get nice and clean, get that hair out of the way. And then I'll take a matching section on the other side. So I have the same amount of hair. Get that hair out of the way. Now,
Michael Paulsonelli says, "Jules, you sexy beast."
How's it going, Michael? Good to hear from you. Glad you're taking a moment of your busy schedule to watch. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to look at the shape of the section. I want to look at the sectioning itself. So I have 3 points of reference. I'm looking at the section, I'm looking at my fingers, and I'm picking a point of the face to look. So I'm creating a triangle, right, which helps me judge distance. If I just look here, or if I just pull the hair down and just look here, it's really difficult sometimes to tell exactly if you're at the same level. But I find if you look at the whole section, again, the section, the root of where the hair is coming from, the finger angle, and pick a point on the face, and that will help you judge the distance and hopefully get a good balance. So now I come over to the other side. I try to mimic it to the best of my ability. So section is the same. Hold my fingers the same, and then looking at the face shape, I'm going to go a little bit longer. It's easier to measure shorter distances, right? So I'm a little bit long here, you can see. And then I'll slowly start to work towards my finish length. Now, I like to spend time on this first section because once you get this right, you're setting yourself up for the rest of the haircut. If you don't get this right, the rest of the haircut's going to be really difficult to get balanced. Again, getting the same elevation, looking at the sectioning the same, getting the finger angle the same. Consistency is key. Checking back on the other side. Come back onto the first side. I think I'm pretty much where I need to be. And then I'll start to follow through. All right, so right from this point, again, take my section on a vertical diagonal. And now, just as on the other side, each section is going to be elevated slightly higher off of the chin. So I am working a form at this point that would be considered a rounder graduation. But I'm just really focusing on the hairline or the outline of the haircut.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How would this parietal ridge, that section along there,
Yep.
how would it affect the haircut if it moved down or up?
Well, I mean, I try to balance it on the curvature of the head.
Okay.
And you know, when I'm doing a person, we know that the head shapes aren't always exact. So you may get a little bit of differences in there, which are okay. But it's I think in your final finish, you know, it's important to have it the same. But now from this point on, I'm going to be rounding through.
Okay.
Right? So when I'm cutting the top and I'm lifting up, I'll make sure that I'm getting my guideline from the same point. And you can see, again, working all the way onto the other side. And that's a good sign because I met in the center. So if I meet in the middle, I know my balance is going to be pretty close to being right on.
Jesse Jenkins, I forgot to pass this on
Yeah.
sooner. You're in the middle of a thought. He's
Yeah.
on a break behind the chair and
Yeah.
loves this cut, and wanted to thank you for all the great reminders.
Thanks, Jesse. Now you got to go out and do it on your next client. You know, and I try to put as much care. I know a lot of times when we think of long layers, we think of simple, we think of basic. You know, we think that it's boring and easy. But I try to put as much care and thought into, my longer haircuts, just as I do my shorter haircuts. And it really, I think, changes your work. Just getting this outline, like I was saying earlier, graduated. Whereas, a client could come in and want a longer shape. I could just cut the bottom, then just lift it up and take the corner off and call it a day, right? But by getting this really kind of rounded graduation that flows into your rounded layering, it's definitely going to make your work look more professional. So now you see the sectioning crossing over. Right onto the other side. Now my elevation, much higher at this point. So I'm going to be working over top of my knuckles so I can get the same elevation and a higher elevation. Whereas inside my hand, I would be lifting up too much or trying to lift too much.
Question from Rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
She's asking, is the lower elevation towards the back mirroring the elevation of the parting of each section?
Yes, and that's a really good point, Rainbow. So what I look at is I think of this section as almost like a guide. So if I start higher here, as I come down, I'm following the curvature of the hairline down onto the other side. So that section is extremely important. So as you can see, I'm starting up higher. Now watch. Now as I start to drop, I come lower with my elevation, and then finally down.
Awesome. So a couple of shout outs. Dan says, I love your videos. Tina Hernandez says, thanks for sharing from sunny, hot Arizona. Yeah, I think it's really hot in the Southwest right now.
Yeah.
And then Bailey says, I aspire to cut hair like that one day.
Well,
Aaron Johnson's like just saying, what's up, guys?
What's up, Aaron? I think everyone on here, and this is, one of the great things about Hairbrained that I love so much, is that we're all about education. And you can cut hair like this. It just takes practice and practice and practice. That's why I love the idea of this series, Professionals Who Practice. You don't become a professional in this industry and then just all of a sudden start taking everything for granted. You're constantly practicing, I've been doing this for quite a while, and I've worked for some of the biggest, well-known named companies in the world. And what I find when you hit that level, we're always pushing ourselves. We're always pushing each other. Whether it's Randy, whether it's Gerard, whether it's people that I'm in the industry and, my colleagues, we're always trying to improve each other so much. So it just takes a little bit of time.
The barber culture blew me away last week.
Oh, the barber culture was great.
Practice, share information.
Yeah, we were at BarberCon. Randy was there. I was there. And what was great was they were just as interested in the hairdressing concepts and ideas and scissor cuts and things like that, and it was great because we really bounced off of each other so much.
So a couple more shout outs. Frank Mussolino says, my man wears the Ducati.
Frank, I wish I had one. Oh my God.
Leah says, if this is a great question.
Yeah.
If the client wears a part 365 days a year, would you cut it to that part?
Yes, and I would encourage it to be somewhere or to the natural parting, especially if it's a strong parting. Now, if they comb in an artificial part and you want a symmetric shape, well then yes, I would cut it to the part. Now, the one thing about when you cut it to the parting, this is pretty close to center, and this is actually a great thing about these mannequin heads. It actually has a natural tendency to part. And it also has a natural swirl in the back, in the crown. I'm not going to try to explain how they do that, but I'm sure it's some way that they, put the hair into the mannequin itself. But it has a really natural growth pattern. So when I comb it back, I would do the same thing on a person. Comb it back, find a natural parting. Now, the closer it is to the center, the more equally balanced it will be. Now, the further it's off center, the wider side has to be longer and the smaller side has to be shorter. How much? the distance that it is from the center. So if you look at it mathematically, if your part is 1 inch off center, the front of this has to be 1 inch longer than the opposite side, right? And from there, that'll get you close enough to when you dry it to then just perfect. And my phrase is, it'll get you in the ballpark, you know, and then it's a matter of perfecting it. So now from here, what I'm looking at, and this was a good question about the sectioning. The sectioning should be close. Does it need to be perfect at this point? No, right? Because now what I'm looking at is the curvature of the head. And I want to take my guideline from that point based on how short I want the layering. And then I'll use that as my guideline. And I'm going to start to elevate up.
So many thank yous for teaching this. Cindy just said this is great.
You see just that little bit of softness it places around the face. Now, the difference with this, because I'm starting combing the hair forward, it's creating a stronger shape around the face. If I wanted it kind of really wispy around the face, I would start in the back, pull the hair back, so when it fell forward, it would be more weightless. So the difference between a rounded shape and a triangular shape. All right, so now once I'm happy with where that's fallen, I'm going to continue my sectioning. I'll tilt forward so you can get a good view of that. And then I'm going to continue to elevate the hair, so I'm combing upwards. The last combing should be onto the previous. Make sure I see my guideline. And then blend that right through. All right, so everything blends really cleanly. I like to just, at this point, just make sure my elevation was good, especially in through the front.
Here's your cross-check, right?
So I just cross-check and I can see that my elevation was good. If I need to, just dust that up a little bit, because now that I got above the curve of the head, through the forehead, right? So just above the curve. So now I'm going to come pretty much straight off of the base. So the first couple sections are forward. Then once I reach that point, I'm going to be more so straight out.
Yeah, Cindy, he's not bad for a farm boy. Diana saying, thanks for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome, guys. I grew up in the farmlands outside of Philadelphia. All right, so you can see making sure that blends through, right? Everything precise, guys.
Yeah.
Everything clean. Everything has a purpose. You know, a lot of times, you know, hairdressers, when they get longer and they think they want something that looks a little bit deconstructed, that's the green light to just lift it up and chop into it and go crazy. Now, do I work freehand, completely freehand? Of course I do. But what I have to realize, I'm not going to create as well of a balanced result, and it's going to be more abstract, where this is going to have much more of a precise, accurate balance, and then the softness and the weightlessness will come from the elevation and the cutting angles that I create.
Comment from Kelly. She's saying you make it look so easy.
Again, Kelly, lots and lots and lots of practice, and continuously pushing. You know, pushing myself. It's kind of funny. It's like, you know, you're living, you're living every day never satisfied with your work. So you constantly want it to be better, better, better.
You never seem frustrated, though.
No, it's fun, man.
That's an interesting thing about you.
It's fun.
You work hard to get good at it,
yeah.
But you don't let it get you down.
No. And you know, some days are better than others, but your worst day has to be good enough, which should be really good.
You're not afraid to make mistakes. It doesn't upset you to make mistakes.
No, not at all. And I've always had this kind of mindset. You know, people may get stressed out. They may get frustrated. Well, how's that helping the situation? It's not, right? You know, so, you know, it's stay relaxed and, you know, just try to do the best you can. And if I have to cut the whole second side over again, well, I have to cut the whole second side over again. Next time, hopefully, it's better. You know, it's funny because there's a difference between, you know, just being relaxed and, you know, enjoying what you do to not caring, right? I mean, I care tremendously, and I want everything I do to be as perfect as I possibly can get it. But like I said, I mean, you know, stress is not gonna help. That was my Philly coming out of me. Stress ain't gonna help. All right.
Yeah, we should clarify that Julian isn't really a farm boy. Yeah. Just kind of said that. People might start asking me for tips on gardening.
Yeah, well, I can grow tomatoes. All right, so just about there. So now I'm working over to the parting. And you can see where that hair naturally wants to split. And again, one of the features that I really love about, you know, the pivot point doll heads is they have the closest to a natural growth pattern and parting that I've experienced, which is something that, you know, we pay so much attention to when we're cutting clients and when we're cutting people's hair. And, you know, for me, you know, doll heads are something that we can really work on the structure and work on the skills that will help us in the salon every day. And, you know, when I teach, you know, I could be teaching this haircut and I have a classroom of 20 people. We have consistency with what everybody's doing and where everybody's starting and finishing. All right, so taking the same sectioning, combing again that hair forward. Now looking at, again, the curvature of the head, just like I did on the other side. Now sometimes, you know, the longest piece I might have to cut back a little bit based on where it's coming. So I'm paying more attention to this, the curvature of the head, than that last little piece there. I mean, yeah, that should put me in the ballpark. But like we were saying before, if that first section is a little bit different, so I might have to start a little bit lower, which I think I do, and then cutting that rounded through.
I'm
Sorry, Randy. Right, and then the real deciding factor is when it falls forward. You know, how does it look? How does it work around the face shape? Because when we're doing a haircut, what we're doing is we're trying to, you know, hit features on the face, whether it be the lip, the cheekbone, and sometimes it might need to be a little bit of a different length on one side than the other because of the asymmetry of the face shape.
Madeline, we're in Southern California.
Why, did she notice how beautiful it was outside? All right, so again, I'm at that curve. So now my elevation is going to come just about straight out.
So you're always over directing kind of to the previous section throughout this whole haircut.
It's always coming
just slightly.
Yeah, forward towards the previous. Now you noticed the first section's more, and then as I get above the round, less. But it's still, everything's forward on that curve, following the curvature of the head.
Dot is just commenting that she had a client, or has a client, not sure which, with one ear longer than the other.
Uh-huh.
Try cutting a short haircut on that. You know, it's kind of common. You can trim the ears though. Right?
Yeah.
My friend did that one time.
You know, it's the ear's a tough one. But, you know, I've done haircuts where I might be cutting a line that kind of points to the cheekbone. And let's just say the cheekbones are asymmetric, right? Well, would a straight line work? Well, not really, because it's going to make it look more asymmetric. So what I would do is I would layer it a little bit so that it was softer, which would distract from the fact that it is slightly asymmetric. Now, let's say it's really extreme. Well, then I would just kind of probably pick somewhere else to feature on the face shape. So, straight lines point and enhance features, where a softer line will distract from certain features and make them look
Kinda
softer.
Like you, I notice you keep moving.
Always, yeah. Randy's like, when Randy films me cutting hair, he has to chase me around the head.
Yeah.
So just making sure that blends in. All right, so we're just about...
Daniel, I do still cut hair. I used to work in the salon, but I just cut hair for friends now.
All right, so you see that blending through. And then finally, as I get to the very back, I'm going to comb this up.
There's Julian sporting a new haircut.
Oh, yeah.
Let me show you the back of this.
This was cut by my good friend Fern the barber when I was in New York over the weekend. All right, so I want to make sure that that blends. Right. I love doing my cross-checking live with you guys because I'm always like, I hope this looks good. But I don't want to hide it from you, because if it doesn't look good, and I mean, we've done videos where it's been a little bit off, and then it's good for you to see that, because then you have to see what adjustments I need to make. Nobody's perfect, and anyone that tells you that every time they do a haircut it's perfectly balanced, is either a liar or they're just not checking their haircuts.
It's a good point Rainbow just brought up. She said that this is such a cool approach to get consistent results, especially in the top.
Yeah.
She's gotten lost and gone too short or shorter than the client wanted.
Yeah.
And this is just a really good, suitable way to layer hair.
Yeah. Yeah. And, again, I could change the angles to make the layers sit up a bit higher. I could really easily change the angle to make the layers sit a little bit lower. It's just really finding,
You can really see that graduation on the inside so much.
It's just, you just pull it out so you can kind of see, the angle here that I cut through the elevation. Whereas if that was all one length, it would lay a little bit more blunt to the edge. So, you get a softer blend. The texture of this, I think, is great.
Brittany says, same here. I get lost and then things get weird.
Well, listen,
those clients can see you sweating too.
Yeah, a haircut, it's like, I don't go on amusement rides. I don't do roller coasters. I cut hair. Because a haircut is like a roller coaster. It's like we all get to a point, and trust me, I still get to a point where I'm like, all right, I hope this works right. And as much as I've done it and as much as I've practiced, you always have that kind of, I don't know what to call it a fear, but that kind of care within what you do, that you want it to be really good. So that's it's a normal feeling, it's a normal emotion. I think if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be as in tune to what I'm doing. It's funny, like when I'm teaching, there's certain points of the haircut where it's just like, all of a sudden it's like, and I'm just like focused 150% on that section, because I know it's a tricky point of the haircut. So no, it's good that you care like that. It's good that you have those feelings. Don't ever anyone tell you that it's easy and things like that, because that's when your work starts to go south. If it does start to get a little bit off, what you have to do is go back to the original plan. Go back to the original plan and stick to it, right? Once you start allowing your insecurities or the feelings to kind of make you change too much, that's when we can tend to start to get into trouble. So I'm going to just dry a little bit. I like the texture. I don't want to dry it too much. Or I don't want to brush it too much. I want to keep it a little bit textured looking. I could sit and I could, blow this out really smooth and flat, but I kind of like a little bit of an undone look, a little bit of a beach vibe. Keep a little bit of the texture of the mannequin head in there. But you know, there's a fine line between messy and undone. So hopefully I'll fall on the undone side of things.
Got a hello from David Dennis.
Oh, what's up, David? How are you, man? Working hard teaching, I'm sure.
I'm going to start booking classes with people on Thursdays at noon and just put your video off ready to watch. You can do over. Maybe a good time to mention that you're doing the workshop this weekend.
Yeah, we have a live HB Live Academy this Monday. Sunday's going to be Lupe. Is it Lupe?
Lupe Voss. Yeah.
Lupe Voss. She's going to be doing some beautiful color work on HB Live Academy.
On Pivot Point Mannequins.
On Pivot Point Mannequins, of course. Yeah. I'm going to be doing my class live on Monday, which is going to be, you know, precision cutting of bob variations. Again, you know, with using Pivot Point mannequins, and we're gonna have a great time. You're gonna have a live audience. Going to really
can't watch it live. You can watch it for a lifetime.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's going to be live on Monday, but it's something that you'll be able to continuously watch. So just trying to get the roots dry a little bit right now. Like I said, I'm not going to go through and do, you know, a really straight, smooth, polished finish. I'm going to do something that's a little bit kind of airier, a little bit more textured.
And Julian uses Davinez products.
Yeah. Yeah, I started with the blow dry primer, and I'll use some of the spray as well that I'll show you just in a minute. Going to crank that up a little bit.
Getting a lot of thank yous, people saying it looks beautiful.
Thanks, guys. You know, and obviously this would not be for, you know, the finish would not be for one of your clients that's your round brush clients, where this isn't like, you know, something that you would do on someone who wanted it flat iron or smooth.
This is round brush beautifully, right?
Oh God, yeah, but that's what I was going to say. But you could definitely cut this structure into the hair.
Mr. Woodruff is watching.
Oh, nice. Welcome, Wayne. You could definitely cut this structure into the hair, and then do, you know, nice round brush. You could blow dry it smooth and then iron it. You know, all of the styling options are still there, but it comes down to getting this cutting structure in there. So I'm just going to use some spray now. And someone asked about the products. So this is Your Hair Assistant Perfecting Hairspray, and this is Davinez. And you can see it's just really bringing the texture out, which I think is giving it a nice look. I'm really into these kind of bell shapes right now. You know, I cut this really smooth bob last week with my friend in Utah, Fumi Iguchi, and he did the shoot. I'll be posting it pretty soon. And, you know, I dressed it, and this was just kind of nice little bell shape. And then finally,
lots of thank yous.
Finally, this is great. This is your hair assistant defining mist, the definition mist. So you can see just getting the hair. And that's what's great about these pivot point doll heads. They have texture to them.
They react like human hair.
Exactly. You don't have to you don't have to blow dry everything smooth and flat and try to make it look pinned to the head. Now I could, but I have the option of playing with the texture. I love texture in hair. You know, I worked for years and years and years doing everything flat and smooth. So I love playing with the texture.
Rainbow is saying fabulous. This is 75% of what my clients want.
Awesome,
and it
Rainbow.
Really translates to the salon.
You know, and it's when it comes to education for me, like I said, I love to push the limits. I love to do things that are a bit more extreme, more avant-garde. But I find with education, most want to see things that they can use that's going to help your day be more successful, right? You know, and with that, you know, this is a great example of a beautiful classic haircut. Classic as far as classic beauty, not classic as in simple, right? There's a lot to it. And again, playing with the texture. So, you know, quick recap. I started out with a very low graduation, building a rounded shape from front to back. Once I got above the curve of the head, the elevation went higher, more towards a 90. And then that's what gives it its beautiful layers, which really brings out the texture. This is the Erica doll head for Pivot Point, and this is going to be part of the Pivot Point series, Professionals Who Practice. So thank you guys for coming and watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you soon.